Yes, indeed. It's the Jim and Terry Show, only this is the Terry solo podcast a few more times before Jim gathers with me for coffee and breakfast. The hot seat waiting for you, my good friend Jim. In the meantime, what's life dealing you? Well, that's a good question. If you are following the news, then you know that there are a couple of things that are really interesting. The Epstein files, the obvious interference by DOJ, FBI, CIA, who knows who's interfering with the release of all these documents. Come on, release the files, guys. Whosever name is on it, to whatever extent they are on it, no redactions, just let it all go. Let the ladies have their day in court. And if you can't let them have their day in court, then let the ladies have their own choice as to whose name they're going to expose and reveal. Let the ladies determine what gets redacted and what doesn't. Not the DOJ, they're obviously unreliable, but let the victims name names. More power to the women. Do you believe the women? Wasn't that a hashtag, believe the women? Yeah, so perhaps it's time. Let the leaks begin. And will this 2026 be the year that Trump is finally impeached the third and fourth times? Maybe he will be finally held accountable by the long arm of the law. Truth, justice, and the American way. Lady liberty. All of this stuff is called into question when you cannot do anything about injustice that you see. And I'm thinking particularly of the release in full of Jack Smith. If you haven't seen it online, you can find it in many different places in your social media accounts, in news accounts. I got my full version of it available through Midas Touch Network, who I follow on social media. But the Jack Smith testimony, did you have enough to go after the president? Jack Smith says, yes, if it were not so, I would not have told you, I would not have done it. I did it not because I broke the law, not because I chose this stuff, but because the president's actions are the stuff that need to be addressed. So Jack Smith brings the goods. And will it make any difference? That's the bottom line. Still, it was good to hear his testimony, even though he was handcuffed, not literally, but metaphysically, by the DOJ and by Judge Cannon. Do you remember that name from Florida? Yeah, she's gotten in the way, protecting Donald Trump all the way through the documents case, all those crates and boxes held in Mar-a-Lago. She is the one, Judge Cannon, Eileen Cannon, is the one who has interfered with this investigation by Jack Smith. Still, it's good to hear something out of that, and I'm glad that he's able to make some testimony, even though his hands are tied by protocols and procedures from the Department of Justice and various rulings. Still, I hope 2026 sees some accountability. Now, there are other things besides the great testimony of Jack Smith, who reminds me of Robert Mueller, guys who follow the book, the letter of the law, guys whose credentials are unimpeachable, unassailable, and yet it is Trump and his vengeance tour that keeps on getting in the way, and MAGA enablers, the GOP enablers, allow this to go on. When is enough enough? When will the stench of injustice finally take Trump and his company, his businesses, his enablers, take them all down? How far down? Well, disbarring lawyers. Perhaps there will be some legal challenges. Maybe it's time, as we were told, that the Democrats would be all rounded up and put on barges, and that Democrats are demon rats, and that they're the ones who are destroying America. I don't think so. When you avoid justice, that's the stink that takes America down. Anyway, that's just one sidebar. One hope for 2026. Finally, the orange guy gets his jumpsuit. I don't know. Here's hoping. Other things that are interesting in the news. Well, apparently there's a big lithium discovery in the James Bay area of Quebec. It is on a Cree reserve. But the interesting part of this story is the story of how vast a supply of lithium this has in potential, and how it was discovered using something I wonder if I can find the technology. It's called Fleet Space Technologies, and they're a South Australia company. They use low Earth orbit plus a combination of technology, devices that put signals into the crust, which they then detect from their satellites in low Earth orbit. And using that technology and AI, they were able to map out almost one of the largest, if not the largest, deposit of lithium in the planet. Enough to power millions of batteries, millions of EVs, millions of green energy efforts. Now, lithium is not, of course, the only source of green. There are other technologies, hydrogen, other forms of storage that will work. But this was a story of Canada having a supply that's greater than, or at least equal to, China's own supply. It's good when you have more than one supplier. We are in the age of Canada diversifying, getting away from, what does it, Mr. Burns say, sucking on the proverbial teats of America. Yeah, it's time for Canada to grow up and put on our big boy pants and look for diversification of our economy. And lithium is one of those things that puts us in competition with China to supply lithium to other parts of the world. Will that drive prices down on EVs? I hope so. And storage technology using lithium? Lithium's just one, and we happen to have a lot of it, so use it while we got it, I guess. The other interesting thing is that this is on Cree land, so of course First Nations need to be brought to the table. Not like Pierre Poilievre says in his year-end interview, well, I would just make it happen. Yeah, you just make it happen, ignoring the rights and responsibilities to be in dialogue with, to develop in plans with, to extract in concert with, to assign rights and responsibilities to First Nations in the province of Quebec? Yeah, I don't think so. I think we have the ethics and policies we need through the Liberal government of the past 8 to 10 years, was it, that Trudeau was in? The groundwork was laid, and how we do extraction in the Ring of Fire in Ontario is also one that you don't just do what you're going to do. You bring people along so that everyone is satisfied that we're doing the best job we can to maintain and sustain ethical practices. So there you go. That's a couple of things. That was very interesting to me. And fleet space, interesting to see that they're discovering these deposits using this kind of technology. Interesting to me that it's not an American company, it's an Australian company. And notice that Australia was the one who was taking Canada. Canada bought into their over-the-horizon radar system. So good things happening without the United States in 2026. And we shall see where this goes. In terms of Ukraine, nothing new. Trump wants it done, thought he wanted it done by New Year's, but, believing that Putin wants the best for Ukraine and for Ukraine to succeed, it tells you how deluded the Trump administration is. Will that change in 2026? No, but Carney and the EU have your back, Ukraine. And will it be time to go it alone without the U.S.? Maybe. Say those words. Is it time to diversify Canada's military so that 70 cents out of every dollar is not spent in the U.S. on American products and industry, but in Canada to Canadian pocketbooks, Canadian corporations, Canadian workers, and make sure that that money sees a turnaround? If it's given to Canadian companies and Canadian workers, it's investment in Canada. GDP, Q3, Q4 looking good for Canada. Employment numbers looking good for Canada. Inflation numbers looking good for Canada. But don't tell Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives that, because they still believe, oh, Canada's broken. Yeah. Canada is not broken, and Canada will take some time to reorient after spending nearly 80 years dependent and under the wing of, largely ignored by, the United States. Time to take center stage. The spotlight is yours, Mr. Carney. Canada, bring it home. IIHF, gold? Here's hoping. Bye-bye for now.
It's called relationship I have with my